Will the recent play of LaVine and Vooch change the way the Chicago Bulls approach the trade deadline? We're also going to be talking about how Billy Donovan will have to utilize player development a little bit more this season. This is your host, Rico Greenhowe, and you have found yourself on another episode of Bulls Digest. And so today we're looking at the recent play with Zach LaVine and Vooch, and if that is going to change how the Chicago Bulls front office really operates as they get closer to the trade deadline. We're also going to be looking at why Billy Donovan is going to have to make some changes to really get some more player development going for the Chicago Bulls and how he can utilize the youth movement a bit more this season. And so let's start with Zach LaVine and Vooch and just their play and if that is going to change maybe the direction the Chicago Bulls take here. And so with Zach LaVine, I think that he's playing at an all-star level. I think that all the narratives in the offseason, he couldn't be traded. He's injury prone. He's a player that only plays one way, and you have to attach assets to move him. I think that all those narratives are done. And I think that every game out, Zach LaVine continues to really put those narratives further behind him. And so I'm glad for Zach LaVine, and I love the way that he has approached it. I think that Zach LaVine has come in, he's been focused, he's said the right things. His usage rate is not, it's low, and it's not in the way of the younger players as well. So that's great. And the same can be said about Vooch. And I mean, Zach LaVine, look, even though he's not, in the all-star votes right now, I think he's played at an all-star level. I mean, he is he's got 23.6 points a game, 4.6 rebounds a game, 4.4 assists. His splits are 52, 44, 81. So those are great. And so Zach LaVine continues to trend up. He's at 5 straight 30-point games. And I think quiet as it's kept, he's actually getting a lot better with the turnovers and things like that. And I think offensively, he's even expanded his game even more this season. I'm seeing him, utilize the mid-range, and still he's knocking down three-point shots at a high clip, getting to the rack. That's something that was down. And so Zach LaVine just trending up and up and up. And with Vooch has played terrific. He's come back from just shooting so poorly from the three-point line. He's shooting now 42.4%. He's averaging 20.2 points a game, 10.1 rebounds a game, 3.3 assists a game. Just last night, he had 6 assists. And so Vooch is taking it inside. He's looking very good. And, just the way that he's looked in this new up-tempo offense has been great. And so I think that both of these players now, I think that they have maybe changed the way that the Chicago Bulls are going to really approach this trade deadline as far as the front office is concerned. I think that you're seeing now that AK is certainly in a position where I think he's maybe taking the stance to where he's definitely not going to sell low on these players, which is a good thing. We don't know if he was going to do that before this season started. Who knows? But, there was the reports and rumors that the Chicago Bulls might or would have to. And so it's good to see that AK, looks like he's taking a stance with some of these rumors and things that we're hearing. So I think that that is right on par with what the Chicago Bulls should do. And I think that with the way that the Chicago Bulls have played, I mean, at this point in time, the time of this recording, they're 10th in the Eastern Conference. They're 18-20. Tomorrow they play the Sacramento Kings, and so that's going to be, 39 games in. And when you look at an 82-game season, 41 games is the halfway point. And so, I think that this team is right where they were last season with being right in the mix in a play-in situation. And the way that this front office is really operated with just running it back and the continuity and things like that, I think that you might see more of the same thing. And right now it's pretty quiet, in the trade rumors and things like that, other than what we're hearing with Vooch and things like that. And honestly, when it comes down to Zach LaVine, we've talked about it with his contract and this new CBA, and just really teams are going to have to be super committed to go out there and get him and really just feel like that Zach LaVine is going to be a game changer for you. And so I'm not saying that he can't. He's shown that he can definitely play off of others as well, which is a great thing. I just think that there's probably other dominoes that have to be moved in order for a team to really seriously kind of come in and maybe get Zach LaVine or maybe have those conversations with the Chicago Bulls. And what I mean by that is I just read something here recently that suggests that, with the Pelicans and their season and how it's kind of gone, maybe teams are kind of waiting to see if the Pelicans are wanting to go ahead and make some trades and really kind of tear down their situation. We've heard, Zion Williamson, and maybe that situation, maybe there's something there, who knows? You have Brandon Ingram, and so he's a player to watch, and they also have some other players that maybe they might want to move. And then when you look at the Jimmy Butler situation, that's something that is a domino as well. Maybe teams sitting back to see what that is going to look like. And then, you also have Brooklyn and their situation with Cam Johnson, and just his names are out there. They've already moved on from Finney Smith, and then also to Dennis Schroeder as well. And so Brooklyn looks like that it's a team that is definitely selling. And so I think that there's more dominoes that kind of need to fall into place before we would see something with Zach LaVine. And that's even if the Chicago Bulls want to move him. And I also think that, with Vooch and Lonzo Ball, I think that those are actually some domino pieces that would need to move before Zach LaVine is moved, because those are, expiring contracts, and you have Vooch, who's going to be an expiring contract. And so I think that would be a situation to monitor before maybe they even were to think about doing something with Zach LaVine. But my personal gut and just the opinion here is that I don't know if I see that the Chicago Bulls are going to really make anything that is going to really shake up this roster, and we might see more of the same thing. And so with that being said, I wanted to shift focus, and I want to look a little bit more at this youth movement and player development. And this is something that I was thinking about this, just going back through the stat sheet from last night and just kind of looking at this. But starting with, Patrick Williams, and I've talked about this with Patrick Williams yesterday, that he's really struggled. I think that, Patrick Williams, he's gotten to the point now where he's been in single digits 4 of his last 5 games. There's been back-to-back games where he's had 2-point games. I've talked about how he struggled to make dunks for whatever reason. I mean, he's been missing the dunks and some of these easy shots at the basket and things like that. And so with Patrick Williams, it just makes me wonder that I get that he's, a young forward. The Chicago Bulls have invested, 5 years, $90 million into him. I get that, he might not necessarily, be healthy, or maybe he's still just working his way back from the foot injury. I will give you that. But I think that just Patrick Williams has had a green light this season, because there's no DeMar DeRozan. I think that he gets the basketball in his hands a little bit more, and he's turned it over for whatever reason when he's handling the basketball. It hasn't looked comfortable there, and he just really hasn't gotten really a great feel for just maybe even just being a spot-up shooter. I think at times there he looks a little uncomfortable in the offense, and so for whatever reason he struggled. And then also too, I think defensively sometimes he's starting to struggle here as of late. And so I looked at this and I'm saying, okay, in last night's game against the Washington Wizards, in which the Chicago Bulls really just blew the Wizards out, it was their biggest win of the season, Patrick Williams played 19 minutes. And then in this game, you're going to notice that Julian Phillips, he only played, 11 minutes in this game. And then you also see that Manas Buzelis played 16 minutes, Jalen Smith played 17, and THT played 15. And so, all these players are younger players for sure. And they sent Julian Phillips and Manas Buzelis down to the G League affiliate team, and they played very well. And it suggests that you're trying to get some reps for them and things like that, and they simply dominated. And I've said this, that I think that Manas Buzelis, Julian Phillips, Dalen Terry, Jalen Smith, these guys have got to play. You just got to throw them out there. And I'm not saying that, you just throw them out there just because they're, the part of your younger team, and, they might be part of the bigger build in the long term here, but they've earned the minutes. And that's something that Billy Donovan talked about. He talked about earning the minutes and not just giving out the minutes. And so I'm saying, I get that we're trying to win, and I think that the Bulls can still win, and you can still incorporate your younger players, because I think that Manas Buzelis, he's leading your team in block shots, and he's playing limited minutes. He's showing flashes out there. And he's earned the minutes. It's not like it's, okay, we're just giving the rookie minutes. And so I think that when you see Patrick Williams struggling like this, I think it's time maybe for Billy Donovan to pivot a little bit more, start using Julian Phillips. I think you start using Modest Buzelis. You start using THT, Jalen Smith some more. And so I just want to see that happen, because if you're going to be going towards a play-in situation or even maybe qualifying for a playoff spot, and you may not even be shaking up the roster at the trade deadline, once these players do eventually leave the team, which we know might happen, after their contract ends and things like that. I talked about the expiring deal with Lonzo, and then you're going to have that with Vooch at some point, because he's got this year and then the next year, who knows what happens. But you're going to have to rely on these younger players. And so, I think that this is the opportunity for the Chicago Bulls to definitely go ahead and pivot like this. And, that leads me to, lastly, with Lonzo Ball, he's playing very well. And I think that he's even poised to get some more minutes. And you have your younger player in Ayo Dosunmu. And so I want to see how that really works out. I absolutely think that Lonzo Ball should get some more minutes, especially if you're not going to be trading him. And if you are really trying to go all in and win right now, or do whatever you're doing with this team and maximize it, then that suggests that you do need to rely a little bit more even on Lonzo Ball. And so anyway, let me know in the comments what you think about this recent news, or I should say news or update, or this video, in the sense of, yes, do you think that definitely Zach LaVine and Vooch have changed maybe what the front office is thinking when it comes down to the trade deadline, which is now under a month, because it's January 11th and we're moving closer to that date? Do you think that the Chicago Bulls will stay the same and really just go all in and try to do as best they can with this, or do you think that they're going to tear it down? And lastly, do you think that, yes, Billy Donovan has got to find ways to play these younger players more, even if you are in this win-now situation? I'd love to hear those thoughts. And so just want to thank everybody out there for liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. It means a lot as we try to reach our goal of 5,000 subscribers by the end of the season. 66.8% of you that watch are not subscribed, so make sure that you go ahead and mash that subscribe button. And even though the Chicago Bulls, seriously, I think at the bottom line, they have to get a direction, and hopefully they do. They have some good all-star play right now with Zach LaVine and Vooch, and so certainly if they are looking to trade those players, I think the value has to be high, and the same with Lonzo Ball as well. And if the Chicago Bulls are looking to make a trade, I'll say it again, you have to make sure that you trade with a purpose and something that does make sense for your franchise, not just for this season, not just for this next season, but something for the long term, so we can see this team get back to being a serious contender to get out of the East, and hopefully get back to maybe winning a championship at some point. So anyway, let me know in the comments, and as I always say, go Bulls. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.